That's just how the cookie crumbles on this one. As you can see by the title, I was completely wrong about my initial thoughts on this controller, and I'm actually genuinely disappointed because I thought so highly of this thing, but after running into some serious issues myself in my own playtest experiences, I already had to refund it. So we're going to just talk about it and get right into it. We're ripping this band-aid off. Here we go. Yo, my name is Cryptic, and I've owned quite a few Pro controllers in my life, but of course, that doesn't mean that Pro controllers are everything, and not every gamer needs to have a Pro controller to enjoy gaming, but there's a lot of us who either A, want to enjoy a more elevated gaming experience, or B, just flat out demand higher performance because you play competitively, or you're just looking to play a little bit better when you're playing with the boys and to make sure you keep that top spot. So personally, I just like to invest into the premium versions of the things that I use on a regular basis. So whether that be just headsets or controllers or PC peripherals, just whatever I need to enhance my personal space and make that personal space more enjoyable and more valuable to me, that's how I like to invest my money. So when I was looking at this controller, I obviously had some pretty high standards, especially coming off of the Elite series. But what brought you to this video is that you were looking for that premium experience, that premium top dollar Pro controller. So what do we have here? We have the Razer Wolverine V3. It's the latest edition of Razer's tournament quality Pro controller lineup. And if you watch my preview video on the channel, I've already discussed all the features and everything a little bit more in depth. So you can definitely check out that video if you want a deeper rundown. But here is just a quick TLDR of all the premium features that you're getting with this controller. It has 6 mappable buttons, which are the 4 back paddles and 2 what they call claw grip buttons that are near the bumpers. It also has trigger stops for your left trigger, right trigger, so you have shorter trigger registration responses. It's supposedly as fast as mouse clicks too with all of their button presses, which, moving on to the next feature, is that it has mecha tactile, a nice little buzzword there for the face buttons, and the 8-way, this disgusting 8-way floating D-pad, which I call these the cereal bowl D-pads. I'm sorry, I just do not enjoy that. Like, I'm just an old school plus sign D-pad kind of guy. I'm sorry. This controller did not sell me on that design either, so it just is what it is. The last thing that they have is, of course, the biggest buzzword that we have for controllers right now, which is Hall effect thumbsticks. It's the new tech, the hot new tech that's floating around, which we're seeing these in cheaper models like the GameSir G7, or even in the latest PowerA Fusion 4 has Hall effect thumbsticks. I just saw that recently, so we're starting to see this pop up a lot more because the most important feature that they have with that technology is that they are drift resistant. Basically, caveman explanation, new thumbsticks are much smoother, much more accurate, and they do not wear down as quickly because they do not have contacting mechanical parts. The controller also has a dongle that it uses for a high-speed, low-latency connection to the Xbox or the PC of your choice. However, you can also use a USB-C to USB-A connection if needed, especially if you are running low on battery, you need to charge it. You can go ahead and just plug it into the Xbox or plug it into the PC, whatever you need. And the controller is being sold for $200 for the wireless model and $100 for the wired tournament edition. You're probably thinking, man, that sounds amazing. How can anything be wrong with that, right? Well, I'll tell you what happened for me. Things went immediately south the moment I opened the box. And if you tune into my weekly lives, you would have seen that. I was absolutely just gutted. It was almost like a visceral moment when I touched the carrying case. And it's just because it felt like cheap plastic dupe that I found marked at 60% off at the local Ross. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you go over to the tech section and there's all these off-brand things that are just mock-ups of all the premium headphones and premium speakers and yada yada yada. This just looks like it belonged in that section from the way that I picked it up and felt it. But basically, the packaging itself just screamed budget cuts to me, especially when it had the recycled cardboard to save the environment look that can be done much better than what it was done in this scenario, but I can understand budget cuts and things that are going to be a one-time experience like the packaging. But either way, I was not impressed. It just wasn't what I expected. The back does have a very thin rubber texture to it, and that does help with that grip. But for the most part, at least with my hands and my grip, I was just on the smooth part and it didn't feel nice under my hand. It's a picky thing, really. But when you're talking about $200 that you're putting into a controller, a game controller, in the world of $70 video games and even $70 base controllers, like not even pro editions, just the base regular replacement controllers for most consoles are at least $60 now. Like, this is stuff that we really have to look into and make sure it makes sense before we buy it. I will say though, the best quality that this controller has is that it is the most comfortable thing I have ever felt in my hands. Minus the slick sides, minus the weirdness of the actual paddles, which I'll get into in a second, everything was very ergonomic. The back paddles themselves are very excellently designed, and they kind of have a half moon shape, and of course they're more buttons than paddles, but I like that. I mentioned that was something that I didn't like as much in the Elite because the paddles fall off a lot, but the fact that it is a button and it's a mouse click button at that, quote unquote, by Razer, it is something that slides into your hands naturally when you go to grip the controller. So that was a sensation that I really liked, and surprisingly so, the claw grip buttons at the top, I didn't think that I would find much use for them, and I still honestly did not. And I played a bunch of different games. I played Destiny, I played the Call of Duty campaign just to get some FPS experience in, New World, just anything casually that I had, and I just never found a moment that I would need those extra two buttons. So I think they really leaned in on the claw grip aspect of that. But either way, I do think that they were extremely comfortable to the point where I was using them more than I was using the actual bumpers. I just went ahead and remapped them to be my new LB and RB buttons because my finger would just naturally reach for it before I could even reach the bumpers. And I don't know if that's honestly a good thing, because you could also argue that that means that these buttons are getting in the way of you getting to your bumpers. So if that's something that matters to you, that's just how I feel about it. I also have this weird thing with the paddles where on the Elite, I say this all the time, I don't use all four paddles. I only use three, two on the right hand and one on the left. And it's the top one on the left. So that bottom space is always open. So when I go to hold this controller and I have all four paddles there, it's a weird muscle memory sensation that is resisting that kind of grip for me. So that's what made it feel a little bit more uncomfortable in my experience. So that may not be something that affects you at all. You may play with all four paddles, you may play claw, whatever it is. You might even have more patience than me when it comes to retraining your fingers. Now, moving on to the real grave digging moment for this controller. During the live testing, I saw that the controller was only at about half charge. Whenever we went to set everything up and I was getting the buttons mapped, you have to download the Razer app. You have all your controls right there. And up in the top right corner, it has your battery level. And this is also when I was going to learn that Razer has this extremely convoluted battery level system here where there's no real numeric value that you can see on the controller. It's either high, medium, or low. And when you go to plug in the controller to charge it, the only notification that you know that it is fully charged is the changing of the light color, which is totally fine. And that changing of the light color is, it'll blink 3 times yellow for less than 80%. It'll be red when it's at low battery, and it'll be green for when it's more than 80%. So there's never really a full notification telling you that, hey, you're 100% fully charged, you're good to go. You're either above 80% or below 80% or low. And low is, you could either have 5 minutes or you could have an hour left with this controller. It's really sporadic and I don't like it. And especially when you go into the app and it just tells you low, medium, or high, it doesn't even give you a number. It's really annoying. It's just something that I think could have been implemented just fine. I don't know why they went this route with the controller, but either way, when I was using it, I went to go plug it in, got that first yellow notification because I saw it on the app that it was at half charge. Totally fine. I'm gonna leave it overnight, get that thing charged up, play it in the morning. After that first nice charge, I was surprised to see that the controller was still showing up as half charged in the app and in the indicator. So I went to charge it again for another 3 hours with a different charger, tried it with a direct wall outlet instead of charging it through the Xbox, and I was still getting the yellow light. So after that, I just decided to ignore it. I went on to do my regular gameplay testing, and next thing I know, after another night's charge, the controller randomly made it to full 100% battery. So I don't know what changed. I don't know why it had to go through that in the first place. But after I made it to 100%, I tried it again. It charged to 100% again. And then after that second full charge, I made sure not to use it until it fully drained because I was trying to explore this battery issue even further. And I want to say that after about 20-ish hours is how long it took for me to get it fully drained. I gave it another night's charge, and guess what happened next? And it was all yellow. Aside from the abysmal battery performance, another issue I had was a strange disconnect that I was having between my Series X and my controller. So it only happened twice, but there was definitely a few moments where I could not get the controller to work until I completely disconnected the dongle and reconnected it and restarted the controller. So I wasn't able to reproduce it a third time, but it's definitely something worth noting because the dongle is your only option for wireless connectivity on this controller. And yeah, you heard that right. This $200 premium controller doesn't even have Bluetooth. So you can't use it for mobile devices. You can't use it on your PC as a Bluetooth. You only can use the dongle. And before anyone says anything about mobile games, I know that mobile games may not be for us main primary gamers, but if you also follow my lives, I was just playtesting Destiny Rising, which is the mobile game that is being developed from my primary gaming franchise for the last 10 years, Destiny. So of course I was going to check that out. And let me tell you, I was absolutely thrilled when I found out that I could just connect my Elite Series 2 to my phone through Bluetooth instead of having to invest into a whole different separate controller, or even worse, use the touch screen. So is Bluetooth a feature that's absolutely necessary? No. But is it something that I expect to have on a $200 controller? Absolutely. Overall, nothing really stood out to me about the Wolverine V3. There wasn't a single time where I felt like I was doing anything better or anything more easily than I could do on my Elite Series 2. And the connection / battery issues can be chalked up to manufacturing error, but I'm not such a forgiving person to believe that when the price is set as steep as $200, especially when you're going toe to toe with an Elite Series 2 that is already cheaper than this controller at $180 for the full package with the case, with the charging dock, with the extra pieces. Plus you have a much better feeling controller in my opinion. My main question to Razer is, where the hell is the money going? The Hall effect technology may be expensive, but we've seen it in controllers as cheap as the GameSir G7 and the PowerA Fusion Pro 4. Those are controllers that I don't even think crack $70. The case and accessories pale in comparison to the value given to you by competitors in the same weight class, i.e. the Elite and the Turtle Beach Stealth Pro, and I know it can't be the build quality because it's so cheap feeling, and the connectivity and the battery quality issues I experience, that's just what's happening here, what's going on with your manufacturing process. The best part about buying premium items is when they remind you that the money you spent was well invested during the use, whether that be through aesthetic appeal or palpably high quality materials, or even the quality of life improvements gained from innovation and well implemented engineering. A pro controller should accomplish at least 2 of those aspects to justify a $200 price tag. Unfortunately, the Razer Wolverine V3 was just lacking in too many of these qualities to earn my dollar, but honestly, it is still a really good controller, and if anything, Razer just understands who their core audience is and who they are marketing towards, because this is a perfect, in my opinion, tournament style controller. Exactly what it's being marketed for. Who would have guessed? But as a casual player who occasionally likes to engage in more competitive content, this isn't a controller that I would see myself keeping long term or find value in investing into. So I will be looking in other places, and I did return my controller. But I do hope that Razer takes another pass at the design and maybe refine some of the adjustments to make it a little bit more casual friendly for somebody that does want to appreciate a finer piece of equipment instead of having a piece of equipment that just performs a lot more tasks and is so focused on performing those tasks that it doesn't matter how it gets there, if that makes sense. Or better yet, they can also just stop being greedy and sell the controller for like a cool 150. I don't know. So those are my thoughts on the Razer Wolverine V3. Tell me what you think about it. Have you had a similar experience? Have you had a better experience? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And let's try to keep it civil, because we, at the end of the day, want the same thing, which is a better quality controller out of the manufacturers and the corporations that provide these products to us. And discussion will drive innovation, and innovation will drive progress. So let's talk about it some more. You can also talk to me on my live streams, which I have every Friday at 8 p.m. EST, unless there is a rigged title fight going on the same night. And you can always just chat with me online, on Twitter, or in my Discord. Links to everything will be in the description below. I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on by, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.